All right, good. So welcome everybody, and it's great to have everybody together and be talking about this topic. There was a whole lot of work that went into preparing this. A lot of it was done for me in advance by the Trail Conference, and then preparing for it. So I'm really glad to be together with you guys and talking about this topic. And just wanted to mention that as I said in the chat, we're going to be covering a lot of material today. And so none of this is proprietary information. Feel free to pull out your camera and take a picture of any screen that you see, because each screen is going to have a lot of information plus maps and things on it. Feel free to do that. And also feel free to use the chat as you get to an area that you may have a question about or want more information on. I'll be glad to come back and answer that at the end. And we'll even come back to the slides. So without further ado, I'll just, by qualifying who I am and the references used in pulling together this presentation. Personally, I'm a guy who spends way too much of his free time out in the woods. I've had the chance to lead over 600 hikes over the last quarter century or so, and gotten the chance to hike a lot in Europe, done the Catskill Peaks in winter and summer, and hiked quite a bit in the German-speaking countries and Scandinavia and France and that. So I love being out in the woods. I love writing guidebooks. I work on my local environmental commission, and I'm the director of development and membership for the Trail Conference, a former board member, and I maintain trails with my fiance. So most of you know who the Trail Conference is, but for anyone who doesn't, just want to mention that the Trail Conference is not a hiking club, but rather the builders, maintainers, and protectors of the trail. I like to think of them as the reason that we have so many trails in this area. And not just trails, but all the things that go with it, bridges and steps and boardwalks and so forth, that help us get across the water and from point A to point B. What many of us may not know is that the Trail Conference has played a very active role over the years in advocating for land for trails and actually preserving and protecting those lands. So a lot of the state forests that we're going to talk about, particularly along the Schwangunk Ridge and along the Highlands Trail area, have been protected as a result of team efforts, but including the Trail Conference. And then the other part of it is that the Trail Conference operates on a $3 million budget each year, but it would be about 10 times that much if we didn't have volunteers out there. So a big part of what we do is to recruit and train and support a group of 2,000 people who volunteer their time, which is very cost effective. It gets the job done for less money and helps out our parks and our governments quite a bit. So that's what the Trail Conference does and why we should care. This is a map of where the trails are located that we maintain. The 2,165 miles are basically spread out between 750 in northern New Jersey and the Hudson Valley of New York, including the Catskills. The red lines mark the trails and the green marks the parks. So things have been changing lately. In case you haven't noticed, boy, there's a lot of people out on the trails these days. And in order to keep us all safe and to ensure that we have a good experience, the Trail Conference and others have been asking that we hike locally. I noticed that about 80% of you who are signed up are actually from New Jersey or somewhere very close to the city. They encourage us to stay small in our groups, just our immediate family, or hike alone, and to have alternative hikes ready to go in case you show up at the trailhead and you find out that the parking lot's completely full. A lot of parking lots have 50% capacity right now due to social distancing. So you show up at your favorite park and it's full at 9 o'clock, 5 minutes after they've opened. Also wearing a face mask. I personally have been wearing a buff because a buff is something that I can just pull over my head. I can keep it around my neck and then I can pull it up as I need to when I pass somebody. A little more convenient than a surgical mask, but everybody has their own thing. practicing leave no trace, you're seeing more litter on the trail because we're seeing more novices showing up on the trail. And we can do our part in helping to tell people that, listen, it's pack in, pack out as far as your trash goes. There's not going to be someone to pick up your bag of litter that you've left along Pine Meadow Lake, kind of thing. And then the last thing is just to be understanding. Some parks are not reopened for maintenance, even though they're open for visitation. And not all volunteers feel completely comfortable getting out just yet. And if you do see problems on the trail, I urge you to come check out nynjtc.org. That's our website. And the /trail-issue will let you report a problem so we can respond to it more quickly. All right, so that's the guideline. I do a whole talk on planning, preparing, and training great hikes. So we talk about safety tips quite a bit, but for this talk, we're just going to boil it down to 3 quick ones. Start early, end early, bring a headlamp if you're going to be hiking in the afternoon. It weighs almost nothing. Plan and prepare a safety kit, a first aid kit, you know, an emergency space blanket, even in the summertime in case you have an unexpected night out in the woods. And map out your route using trail conference maps. And also know how to identify things like poison ivy, a timber rattlesnake, and those kinds of things out on the trail, and give them their space. So, all right, enough about that. I wanted to just touch on, John and I think, talked a little bit about reasons to hike less traveled trails before this started. For one thing, obviously, it's going to be easier to do social distancing when you're on a quieter trail, but you're also helping to spread out the population a bit. Everybody's going to the usual suspect parks like Harriman and Breakneck Ridge and places like that, the Delaware Water Gap down at Worthington Forest. By our hiking in other places, we're helping to prevent crowding in those other places and helping to prevent park closures, which none of us want. Obviously, we're going to see a lot more wildlife, get a lot more solitude when we do this. And as a maintainer myself, I know that quieter trails like this really need our presence. They need our presence to pick up branches, to maintain the treadway. Many trails get overgrown, especially if they have things like blueberry bushes or an understory in the forest. So walking on the trails is good. And there's an inverse relationship between legitimate trail users and illegitimate trail users. So the more of us there are out on the trail, the less likely people are going to be feeling like they can get away with riding ATVs, dumping a whole case of beer out on the trail, or landowners encroaching on parklands, which is an issue too. So our presence is good, and none of the trails that we're going to talk about today are secrets. They are mapped on Trail Conference or other maps, and they typically have a Trail Conference maintainer and supervisor whose job it is to care for them. So the way we selected the hikes was really to find hikes that are off the main highways, so they're less likely for people to just see them and gravitate toward them. We don't want them to become overloaded with people either. Second, want to make sure that they're worth visiting. You know, it's got to be, you know, it's not enough for it to just be a quiet park. It should be cool and interesting, and it should have ample parking so that if it does increase in usage, there's enough space for us to park. Okay, so let's do this, and we'll start talking about where we're going to go. I've broken this presentation out into 3 parts. As I mentioned, 80% of you signing up are from New Jersey. I'm from northern New Jersey myself. So we will talk a little bit more about New Jersey in the spirit of hiking local, but we'll also talk about New York west of the Hudson River and New York east of the Hudson River. Again, if you have questions as we go, shoot me a chat and we'll get to it at the end of the presentation. All right, so the first area I want to talk about is close to me. I live in Wild West Milford, New Jersey, which is up on the New York state border, but it's only about halfway across the state. So it's not too hard to get to from routes 287 or Route 23, you know, from New York State or from New Jersey. And the cool thing about what I call the borderlands, the northern borderlands, is that New Jersey's not like New York. New York had this tradition of parks going back more than 100 years, where the Rockefellers and the Harrimans and those folks, you know, donated huge tracts of land. And as a result, New Yorkers grew up with a culture of being outdoors and on the trails. New Jersey, by contrast, was kind of that place that had an oh no moment in the early 1960s and suddenly began saving parkland. So the parklands in New Jersey tend to be a little further out on the northern borders, on the western borders of the state. And so they're out in quieter places, but also a lot of New Yorkers didn't ever think that there could be anything good to hike in New Jersey. So the parks have tended to be a little bit quieter because of the lack of New Yorkers coming in to hike. That's changing now because people are realizing that geologically, this region is almost the same as Harriman and other parks in the Hudson Valley. So we'll talk about this a little bit. The Northern Highlands area is going to be covered by Trail Conference map sets North Jersey, primarily North Jersey, but a little bit of Jersey Highlands map as well. So if you're looking to find these trails. First place I want to talk about is where I went running last night, and it's just beautiful up there. The Watershed region. This is known as the Pequannock Watershed, and one of the reasons it's so quiet is because it's kind of hard to get in legally. What you have to do to get a watershed permit here is to go to the main office on Echo Lake Road in West Milford. The address is down below, by the way. With 14 bucks in hand, you need to go on a Tuesday or a Thursday, and then you get your permit, and you're good to hike there. Once you do that, you've got a whole wealth of trails to explore, not too far away that are really interesting and beautiful and not crowded. So, for those of you familiar with Pequannock Watershed, one of my favorite hikes is the Highlands Trail, and I used to maintain the section from Route 23 and Canistere Road to the Clinton Reservoir. And this area is so beautiful and remote. It contains Dunker Pond, which used to be a small pond, and now the beavers have turned it into a big deal with all the damming and increasing the size of the water. And then this area has beautiful stone fences. And back here on Clinton Reservoir, you've got just beautiful views, but you're still having a lot of solitude because you're away from roads. And then Buckabear Pond is one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen. It's got a kind of a swampy wetlands pond type of environment, plus beavers and really a lot of rare plants and plenty of bears too at Buckabear Pond. So cool place to check out. Heading up the Highlands Trail takes you through two brooks, one of the most beautiful evergreen type environments you'll go through, up to Barefoot Fire Tower and so on as the Highlands Trail makes its way from Pennsylvania to Putnam County, New York. So really cool trail, really cool park. If you're looking for a shorter hike, you can go to P3, I believe this is right here, parking area 3, and do a hike of only about 2.5 miles. And that will take you to Buckabear Pond, take you out on a cool peninsula with views, and you'll see a lot for a very short hike. Now, one of my favorite places to go is the Stevens Road access here. That is off of Union Valley Road, and that will take you up to a number of different trails. It'll take you to a white trail, to the blue-white trail, which is the Hanks Pond Trail, and to the Fire Tower Trail. So if you're looking for a great run, you can run the Fire Tower Loop down to Hanks Pond and Van Orden Road and come back along the west shore of Hanks Pond. And it's beautiful and very runnable. I know a lot of you who signed up are trail runners, so I'll mention a few of those. Also, to the north of there in Wawayanda are some beautiful remote trails. All right, so this is a picture of Hanks Pond and of the fire tower. We caught that, my fiance caught that picture of Hanks Pond in the evening, just as the sun was about to set. And you can see some amazing little rocks along the side here. This is a place where people like to suntan and enjoy the sunset. Another watershed to check out not too far away in Ringwood is the North Jersey District Water Supply Commission. This one doesn't require a permit. So all you have to do is show up and stay on the trails. You do have to stay on the trails to be in compliance. And the Highlands Trail, again, is running through this section, and it goes over 3 awesome mountains: Windbeam, Bear, although not Bear Mountain like we know in New York, and Board Mountain over here. So I'm trying to get my cursor back. Anyway, the Highlands Trail has beautiful views of the Wanakee Reservoir from 1,000 feet up, and also can be continued as the Stonetown Circular Trail. So you can continue and make a big loop of about 10 miles that will feel like more than 10 miles, I promise you. But it'll take you through some really remote country with great views and a lot of nature and solitude and cool plants as well. So that's the North Jersey watershed. That's a view from Windbeam Mountain, and that was taken last fall. Remember how dry it was last fall? You can see that the fall colors are a bit muted here, and you can even see that the shoreline has been receding here at Wanakee Reservoir because of the drought. Now, how many of you are familiar with Wawayanda State Park? This is up on the New York state border as well, and it's very popular during the summer as a swimming location, but it is a huge park. There's so much more to it than the beach area. And what I recommend if you're going to visit Wawayanda is that you avoid the Terrace Pond area because it's packed in the summertime with illegal swimmers and trashers and that type of thing. But if you enter by the Cherry Ridge Road exits over here, sorry, up here, and over on the west side, Cherry Ridge Road runs through the park as a dirt road. Those will get you into the park, and you'll have some really amazing stuff to see. You can also access from further south in the watershed. Some areas like this will get you into Wawayanda as well, but you need to have a permit. So avoid parking lot 7, avoid the Warwick Turnpike accesses, and definitely avoid the Pochuck Boardwalk, which is closed right now. This is just a sampling of some of the cool stuff that you'll see in Wawayanda. You've got big rhododendron forests, you've got wetlands and creeks, you've got big lakes, boardwalks. If you've ever been to High Point State Park and visited the cedar swamp there, very pretty at High Point Monument area, well, this boardwalk and cedar swamp trail is bigger and I think even more impressive. So check it out. Along those lines, if you are looking for trails, I encourage you to take a picture of this slide. The Red Dot, Cedar Swamp, Double Pond, Plymouth, and Banker trails are where you want to check out if you want to see those beautiful swamps. And if you're into a nice weekday loop, the scenic loop around Wawayanda Lake is just gorgeous. I mean, it's really fantastic. Gets a little busy on weekends, but it's excellent as either a hiking or running experience. And these are definitely some of the wildlife features you'll find in Wawayanda: porcupines, bobcats, definitely its fair share of bears. I talk to a lot of people who live around there, and they absolutely swear that there are mountain lions in the park, but haven't seen any yet, and I hope I don't, but definitely some bobcats, big bobcats up there too. All right, so let's move on to Norvin Green State Forest. Raise your hand if you have been to Norvin Green. All right, I see a couple hands going up. So Norvin Green contains some of the oldest trails in the whole region. The Trail Conference was founded in 1920, and the first trail we built was the Ramapo-Dunderberg Trail across Harriman. It led to the building of the Appalachian Trail, in fact. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But in the 19th century, late 19th century, the trails that are now in Norvin Green State Forest, many of them were built. Two things have happened over time. One, the trails have become much more popular. And two, a quarry owner came in and bought up a huge chunk of land in Norvin Green, taking away a lot of real estate. So the end result is a lot of crowding. What happened after that was what was interesting, though. because the trail conference saw an opportunity to work in the northern part of the park. That's north of Westbrook Road, for those of you familiar with the area. So not where Weise Ecology Center is, not down by Otter Hole Road, but north of there. There's a whole new network of trails that have been built and improved that you can explore, and they're super quiet, and they've got all the pretty features of the southern sections. So I recommend checking out the Monadnock Point Loop, which is on the top of this screen here. You have options using these cutoffs to do either a 3-mile, 5-mile, or 8-mile loop. You've got views along the way, and you've got a cool little lake called Lake Sonoma as well. So that's one. The other is if you're headed up north, as if you were going to Greenwood Lake, check out the Burnt Meadow Loop. This Burnt Meadow Loop is only 3-4 miles long, but it has a lot of opportunities to add on, and it's got one of the finest views of the Monkville Reservoir from on top on Horse Pond Mountain. So definitely check that out. And these are some of the amazing sights that you'll see over in Norvin Green. All right. Now, a lot of you also are from more urbanized parts of the region, and getting out to Wild West, Milford, and Ringwood may not be an option for you, or too far out anyway. So these two hikes are ones that you can reach that aren't too far away. Ringwood State Park is on the eastern edge of Ringwood, just over Skyline Drive, and Ilgenstein Rock is an excellent destination. You can access it from parking lot C, which is located over at the southern end of the Botanical Gardens at Skylands Manor area, and you can follow in a counterclockwise loop here. So Lot C crossover trail, which is white, to Ilgenstein Rock. Pearson Ridge Trail is blue, Halifax is green, and Ringwood Ramapo is red. You'll find it on your map. For those of you who want to stay on the east side of the ridge, come check out Campgaw Reservation. Campgaw is very close to the Ramapo Reservation, which, as many of you know, is packed right now, just totally packed with people every weekend. Campgaw is just a mile or two away, and it's a little smaller, but not heavily visited, and you get a really nice view from the top of the ski slopes. So you can check out the ski slopes while you're back there too. And they're both runnable areas as well if you're into running. And they have some cool views of the skyline as well. All right, now we're going to move over to Morris County. I'm going to take you to the wild side of Morris County, and I'm going to take you to the wealthy side of Morris County. So first, the wild side. As you're heading up 287 or down 287 to Route 23 west, you're headed toward High Point. You're going to come to a place called Newfoundland, spelled like Newfoundland, but we call it Newfoundland up here. And you can hike a 20-mile trail called the Four Birds Trail. It will give you access to Pudding Stone Cliffs. So they're purple rock with white speckles in it, and some great clifftop views. You're going to get iron mines and just a really wild trail experience. This is not good for doing loop hikes, but definitely if you can set 2 cars, you want to check this area out. And it'll take you down to Split Rock Reservoir, which is beautiful as well. Now, these are some of the views that you'll see from along those trails. So now I'm going to take you to the wealthier parts of Morris County. And, you know, it's kind of fun to go to the wealthier parts of any area where there are trails, because number one, you never know who you might meet, you know, out there. There might be, the owls might be waiting for you. But at the Schiff Nature Preserve in Mendham, you could run into the former governor of New Jersey. You never know. Probably not, though. Schiff Nature Preserve is very well preserved. The trails are beautiful. They have a great nature center when that nature center opens back up again. And they have a complex system of trails, so you'll want to pick up their map. This is not one of the ones that's on the Trail Conference map set. So if you're headed out from Morristown to Mendham, you'll see signs for the Schiff Nature Preserve, and you can Google it as well. Silas Conduct Park is close to Kinnelon and the Smoke Rise area. So that's also right off Route 23. You're going to see that up at the north end of the map here, Route 23. My cursor wants to give me a hard time here. But from here, you can do a beautiful 3-mile loop. And each of these stars is a viewpoint. So you've got a little cave tunnel at the bottom, you've got views, and you've got a lake as well. So great for a less strenuous day. All right, now I'm going to take you out to the Pennsylvania side. The Pennsylvania side of New Jersey contains a huge number of parks, some very crowded, some not so much. But we'll head out that way now to one of my favorite parks called Stokes State Forest. Stokes is kind of the big park that time forgot. Stokes, to access Stokes, you want to be going up Route 206 if you're coming from Route 80 or Route 15, and it will take you out toward the Delaware River. If you're in southern Stokes, that's south of Route 206, there's a great loop that you can do on the top of the screen. And you can start at Tillman Ravine at the upper parking lot, which is a little less crowded than the lower lot. Go check out the beautiful Tillman Ravine, which is an attraction in itself. And then head up the Red Maple Trail to the Brinks Road Trail to the Appalachian Trail. Once you get up there, you're going to have views looking out into the valley below, into Sussex County farm country, and then you'll swing back on Red Maple Trail to make a beautiful loop. So that's a hike that you can do. It's you know, maybe 7 miles total, 6 or 7 miles to hike it. And then if you want to check out something that's really an epic adventure, the northern part of the park has lots and lots of options. That's the photo at the bottom, or the map at the bottom of the screen. The perimeter of this section is marked by the Blue Mountain Loop, which is 17 miles long. But if you don't want to go quite that far, I recommend doing the Sunrise Geologic Loop. I've outlined the trails and which way you take them here. That's about 5 miles, and you can access that from Sunrise Mountain Road. So you're going up 206, you'll make a right to get onto Sunrise Mountain Road, and you can park at any of the different trailheads there. They're not super crowded. I would avoid Stony Lake, which is popular with swimmers, and I would avoid driving all the way up to Sunrise Mountain because that's going to be pretty busy too, with people who don't want to walk more than, you know, 1/10 of a mile to get to a viewpoint. All right, so from Sunrise Mountain Road, you get that amazing view of High Point Monument that you're looking at right there, and then Tillman Ravine is on the right. I'm just going to move a little south of Stokes State Forest now to a place called the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area. This is not the Delaware Water Gap, okay? The Delaware Water Gap is Worthington State Forest. That's down by Route 80. Super crowded. Stay away, especially now. Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area is in between Stokes and the southern part down by the Water Gap. There's a really cool area called Blue Mountain Lake. I recommend you check it out. It'll take you to a place called Hemlock Pond, which is one of the most magical areas. You'll see it on your Kittatinny map, number 121. And it'll also take you out to a great viewpoint looking out over the Delaware into Pennsylvania, and that's called Indian Rocks. So definitely check that one out. All right, we're going to move to High Point State Park, and we're going to go to High Point, but not the monument, okay? So I'm going to start with High Point south of Route 23. You take Route 23 north, almost all the way north in New Jersey to get to this park. And most people turn right to go in and drive to the monument where they can eat hot dogs and such. That's not what we're doing today. We're either going to park off to the left at the Appalachian Trail parking lot, or we're going to go off to the right. First, we're going to go off to the left and do the Southern High Point Loop. The Appalachian Trail runs through here. It takes you right past places like what's it called? The Blue Dot Loop, the Blue Dot Trail, and the Overlook out to Pennsylvania, Dutch Shoe Rock, and so forth. And then the Iris Trail forms a figure-8 loop here. So you can hike this as a double loop, and you'll have very few crowds. So that's the southern loop. The northern loop that I recommend you take is going to take you near the monument, but not to the monument. So what you're seeing down here is Steeny Kill Trail and a parking lot for Steeny Kill Lake. So to get to it, you want to go up Route 23 as if you're going to the main park. You're going to pass the main park entrance, and then you're going to pull into the Steeny Kill boat launch parking area. From there, pick up the Steeny Kill Trail, and that will end at the Monument Trail. Now, the Monument Trail is a grand loop trail that takes you around. It's kind of fun by itself, but we're going to stay away from the monument. We're just going to hike the Monument Trail northbound, that is from left to right on your screen. It'll take us to some amazing views. And then if you want, you can go check out the Cedar Swamp, which is down below here, and make a little loop with the SRT and the RG, the Monument Trail. Okay. Returning back onto the on the Shawangunk Ridge Trail here, trying to get my cursor back. We're going to head across the line into New York, and we're going to head all the way over to Greenville Turnpike. That will give you a beautiful remote hike, and you'll be exploring the Shawangunk Ridge Trail, which we'll talk about more later. All right, so this is the view from the Monument Trail, but not the monument. And what we're looking at down here is Port Jervis, Matamoras, and the spot where the Delaware River becomes the upper Delaware, makes a big bend right there and heads up into the Catskills. So beautiful country, beautiful in any season. All right, and now we're going to cross the Delaware. Pennsylvania side of the Delaware is also very interesting, even less crowded. If you're going that far anyway, you might as well just pop across and check out places like the Pocono Environmental Education Center, PEEC. Nearby is the Hornbeck's Falls. There are many very crowded waterfalls in the area, but Hornbeck's is pretty quiet. And then there's also Dingman's Falls, which is a very short hike, good to take your mom or dad on, kind of thing. And they have lots and lots of parking, although you won't be alone on that one unless you go on a weekday. The other area that I really recommend you check out, if you're heading up Route 206, as if you were going to Stokes, you can head across the 206 bridge, and you'll be very close to a place called Cliff Park, Raymondskill Road and Raymondskill Falls, and Milford, Pennsylvania. So there's two places you can park. You want to look for Cliff Park, which is a small town park that's part of Dingman's, and that you'll see that where the yellow arrow is pointing on the map. Or you can park along Route 209 by the toll gates, not the toll gates for Route 206, but the old toll gates along Route 209 closer to Milford. Why would you do this? Because you're going to get an amazing set of views from on top of the cliff. There are peregrine falcons up there, and then there's two different sets of falls and a lake. Hacker's Falls is not a huge waterfall, but it's like a faucet. It just pours out water, and you definitely want to check it out. And then you can also check out Raymondskill Falls, which is a very popular waterfall because it's so huge, but you won't have to deal with all the parking issues because you'll be on foot at that point. So those of you who trail run, the Cliff Trail is fantastic for running. And down below, along the river, along Route 209, you're going to see this long red line, and that's the McDade Trail, which runs 35 miles. Great for biking, great for easy walks along the floodplain, the beautiful floodplain of the Delaware River, and excellent for running as well. So what we're looking at here is the view from on top of the cliff, looking down on the Delaware River, and that line that you can see running through the field, that's the McDade Trail. Okay, so it's a perfect kind of rail trail, rugged rail trail option for you. Great for a mountain bike, or great for just an easy walk. And then Dingman's Falls is on the right. So I hope this is helpful in terms of areas out west. Now, some of you are also coming from areas like Princeton and Trenton and Central Jersey, and going north of Route 80 is just kind of a far drive for you. So here are a couple options for you that are south of Route 80. One is Jenny Jump State Forest. It's on the way to the Delaware Water Gap on Route 80, but just south of Route 80 in Warren County. It's great for point-to-point hikes. You can do about a 7-mile hike there. You'll get views, you'll get a lake, you'll get amazing views of New Jersey's black dirt country, the Warren County area. Just don't park by the office, park at the north and south ends. Another park, anybody from near Hunterdon County out that way? Hunterdon County is, it's a little bit removed from the big hills, but there's 2 good parks you can check out. Voorhees State Park, which is up near the Columbia Trail and the Columbia Trail and the Highlands Trail. Great park, plenty of parking. Looks like it should be further north because it's rocky. And the same for the Musconetcong Gorge. Musconetcong Gorge is out along the Delaware River on the Hunterdon Warren County border. So you can definitely reach that if you're from the Princeton area or around there. All right, so that was New Jersey. And at this point, we have a surprise guest. Our senior trail builder, Ben Sugar, who's been working building trails and rolling rocks for a living since 2003, has agreed to join us to talk a little bit about some of the projects that we are doing at the Trail Conference in 2020. As you know, the season started late, and we were worried that we weren't going to even have an AmeriCorps crew or have crews out there operating at all. It will be a shortened season, but these projects in New York are coming up. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ben Sugar.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see so many people on a Saturday morning joining us, even though it's so beautiful out, albeit hot. But like Don said, my title is a senior trail builder. I oversee the AmeriCorps trail crews for our Conservation Corps program. And this season, we're going to have a total of about 5 crews out working in 3 primary locations. And some of these actually, depending on how you time it, could actually be good, quiet trails as well. So I'll go ahead and get into describing them. So we have a pretty significant project in Harriman State Park working on one of the oldest, larger trails in the area, the Ramapo-Dunderberg Trail on the Tuxedo end. In fact, it's accessible by rail if you were to head up Route 17. They're going to be working on the first 1/4 to 1/3 of a mile of trail, building a lot of staircases, repairing a lot of staircases, and trying to better define the trails in some places in order to lessen the impact from hiking. This area gets a lot of backpackers on the weekend, but if you go during the week, my experience is that it's actually quite quiet. So if you need something you can zip up Route 17 and get to quickly, that can be a good option if you're free on a weekday. We're also going to be doing significant work in Sterling Forest State Park on a, I'd say, slightly lesser used loop of the park called the McKeegs Loop. We're going to be converting certain sections that up to now have been largely 2-track woods roads into single-track multi-use trail that will not only be more sustainable, but will allow for better access and better experiences for people who run, people who mountain bike, and even equestrians, this is included in the Sterling Forest Master Plan. And so if you happen out there, it's usually pretty quiet and there's tons of parking. You may see us out there working, although just a little bit off the trail, so plenty of social distance. And the final place we'll be working is in Hudson Highlands State Park, east of the Hudson, working on 2 very popular trails. Undercliff, which is the popular return route for Breakneck Ridge. We'll be finishing a relocation and repair of that trail that was begun back in, I believe, 2016. And then finishing up a major renovation of the Washburn Trail, which is, some people like to call it Breakneck Light, because it has a lot of the same views, but without the crazy scrambles. And that's a very intensive project. And if you go head up there at some point when things are quiet and they calm down, you definitely will notice our presence, because it's a pretty significant site. A lot of staircases, a lot of rock wall being built there. Yeah, if you have any questions for me, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll stick around for a little bit. And feel free to email me if you have any questions about our projects this summer.
Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate that. And hey, I wonder if you could also just mention briefly about the difference between individual maintainers, volunteer maintainers, and the AmeriCorps crew.
Yeah, so in general, when people say trail work, it's kind of, it's a very imprecise term. So when someone invites you to their cabin in the country, it could be anything from a McMansion to a falling down shack. Similarly, trail work runs the gamut. Individual maintainers and overseers handle the maintenance of the trails, mainly keeping the corridor clear, keeping blazes updated and prominent, clearing away smaller obstructions, that sort of thing. Whereas what we get into with the AmeriCorps program is the larger projects that involve a lot more site impacts, at least temporarily, relocations, new construction. So, excavation, rock moving. I tend to tell people who don't know anything about what I do is that I'm kind of like a construction foreman who hikes a lot, because it can get to that level of intensity. And so these are projects that involve a lot of heavy lifting, figuratively and literally. So a lot of, building with rock, building bridges, excavating the earth, and a lot of planning and thought goes into it, because the whole point of these projects is to make trails more resilient and more sustainable, both environmentally and socially.
Thank you so much, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Jennifer, if there are any questions that have come up for either Ben or myself now, we could jump on those a little bit. If not, we'll move on.
Sure, there was a few questions. So Julie asked, should we scrub our boots to protect against invasive species?
Oh, that's a great one. Thanks for asking that. It is helpful to scrub your boots. Boots can be can carry invasive pollens and all kinds of invasives with them. So yes, it is helpful to scrub your boots before you go in. And use a boot brush. If you have a boot brush, that's a great way to accomplish the same thing if you're not into soap and water so much.
And then Carolyn asked, are there any of these lakes good for kayaking and or paddle boarding?
Ah, okay. Well, I talked a little bit about the Monksville Reservoir, how you can take the Burnt Meadow Trail up to get to the Monksville Reservoir. If you're heading up that way and driving up Greenwood Lake Turnpike, also known as Passaic County Route 511, you can access a couple of different boat launches off of that for the Monksville Reservoir. One is through Tranquility County Park, Passaic County Park Tranquility, and the other is the boat launches for Monksville. That's definitely a good one. Blue Mountain Lakes, I believe, allows for kayaking as well. That's the one out by the Delaware River, and there's a host of others, depending on where you come from.
And then Glenn, he's left us, he asked about public transportation from New York City to any or some of North Jersey parks.
Ah, okay, great. North Jersey parks, yeah, it's a little trickier to get to the North Jersey parks by public transportation, but you can get public transit out to Ramapo College, and Ramapo College will put you very close to Ramapo Reservation. That's one. Most of the Essex County parks and the Lenape Trail are close to train lines, Montclair and Cedar Grove and towns like that. The only thing I'll say is that, best to go on a weekday because those parks tend to be pretty busy on the weekends.
Totally. And I also did share the resource page to accessible trails via public transportation in the group chat. So if anybody else is interested in that resource. And then we had a question about Farney State Park. if there's a need, if they need to purchase a special pass.
Ah, okay, great, great. Hey, and before I answer that one, I just want to add to the kayak question. My fiance Kim just reminded me that you can rent kayaks and paddle boards over at Monksville Reservoir. So if you don't have your own kayak or you're coming by public transportation or something, you can do that. Farney Highlands. So the Farney Highlands it's two parts. The northern section, which would be up on those Pudding Stone Cliffs by Newfoundland, and the Craig Muir Ski area and Timberline Lake area. That's part of the Newark watershed, the Pequannock watershed that I was talking about, that requires that $14 permit, and you go to Echo Lake Road to get.
And I had a question about that. Is that still available in person, or I think it might only be online now?
If you go on Tuesday morning or Thursday morning, you should be able to get it in person. And
even with the whole COVID thing? Because I thought they might have changed that. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how I did it this year. You wear a face mask and everybody social distances. They don't let you in the building, but they come out with your permit. And but give them a call. The situation can always be changing. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, is it a sticker for your car? Like, what is it that makes you safe and they know that you are paid or whatever?
Okay. Yeah, what you get is you get a sticker for your car that you put in your left rear window. And then you also get a permit, a piece of paper that you're supposed to carry with you. I've never seen a soul out on the trails. The place where they get you is in the parking lots. So the sticker is definitely the most important thing to have with you.
Okay.
But yeah.
Because the reason I ask is I lead a small hiking group in Lake Mohawk where I live.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure we're doing it the right way. You know what I mean? I don't want to get in trouble. So everyone in my group that's driving should definitely have their own permit.
Yeah. Now, I'll tell you one thing. As a hike leader myself, you can apply for a group permit. So if you're a permit holder and you talk to them and say, hey, I'd like to lead a group of under 13 people out in the Newark watershed, they can issue you a permit. You have to apply for it in writing. And then they don't charge everybody. So not too bad.
That's perfect for me. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Thanks again, Ben. Really appreciate it. Any other questions for Ben, Jen?
No questions for Ben. Just an additional follow-up question about Monksville, if you can kayak to and camp around Monksville.
Okay. Right now, camping is not permitted, but you can definitely kayak to your heart's content.
Okay, that's it.
Camping's a little tricky these days because a lot of the parks that even have traditionally offered camping are suspending that. So you definitely want to check with your individual park before you do. And even the Appalachian Trail has some restrictions on it as well. Appalachian Trail, by the way, is one of those that that's open, but not open for maintenance. So oddly enough, which is frustrating to us because we maintain the entire Appalachian Trail across the states of New Jersey and New York. We're the organization that does the actual maintenance of the trail. Ben talked a bit about all the planning that goes into AmeriCorps activities and some of these bigger projects. And the truth is the Trail Conference has a very complicated situation with the COVID crisis because we've always worked with 181 different park units. And you can imagine that each landowner, each park manager has its own rules and its own way of doing things and its own planning process that we're part of. So that's why really maintaining trails is a much bigger job than it appears at the outset. And so as a result, the Trail Conference has been responding to the crisis in a number of different kinds of ways. The first step was really to establish a much stronger online presence. This would allow us to train our volunteers and recruit them online during the crisis when we can't be out there in the field with them, and also to educate the public to work with our park partners to prioritize projects so that, like the Harriman project, the Sterling Forest project, the Hudson Highlands project, so that they can move forward. And also lobbying them to make investments in our open spaces. And using data, collecting and using data to motivate them to do that. And also enhancing our own digital platforms so that we can train novice hikers how to use the trails safely and responsibly. So we'll talk a little bit more about this, but if you want to find out more information about the recovery and response effort, just shoot me an email. I'd love to chat with you a little bit more about it. There's more than we can cover in this presentation, but we really appreciate all of you who are members and supporters of the Trail Conference. This is a crucial time in our history. We're turning 100 years old, and we're just hoping to, remain resilient and financially viable for the next century. And we appreciate all that you guys do. So shoot me an email if you have any questions or just want to chat about it. Now we're going to move on to New York. As Ben was talking about all the projects in New York, we're going to talk about some of the less traveled trails there. I'm going to start with Orange and Rockland County because sounds like most of you live somewhat close to that area. And we're going to talk about Sterling Forest, the Southern Gunks, ways to access Black Rock State Forest, and some of the other more popular parks. So I'm going to start with, Ben was talking about Sterling Forest and the work that we're doing in the McKeegs Meadow area. That particular trail is part of a bigger project that we did. Sterling Forest came out with a plan to revitalize the trails some 8 years ago. And sorry for the noise in the background. But as a part of that, many parks like Ringwood and Sterling Forest have dictated to us that we need to either incorporate multi-use trails into what we do, or someone else will do those trails for us. And so we've opted to roll with the punches, and it's been a good thing. It's helped to be more inclusive. And so the trails in Sterling Forest, the multi-use trails, are a joy to run on. I definitely recommend checking them out, even if you're a hiker. They're beautiful. Other places are the Doris Duke Trail, and you'll see the blue circle at the top left map. The Doris Duke Trail was built by AmeriCorps crews, and it's a really beautifully built and constructed new trail that takes you up on top of Sterling Ridge. You can get to the Appalachian Trail from there. You can get to viewpoints. There's a really cool beaver dam down at the bottom, and it's a loop of about 4.5 miles that won't be super crowded. How do you get there? Take Route 17 north through Tuxedo, as if you were going to, say, the Renaissance Fair. Make a left on Route 17A, and you'll go past the ski area and Renaissance Fair. Just before Route 17A makes a hard left and heads up the mountain toward Greenwood Lake, you're going to see a road on your right called Benjamin Meadow Road. You're going to make a right on that, and you're going to go down about 1/4 mile or so, and you'll see the Doris Duke parking lot on your left. Definitely recommend you check that one out. It's really beautiful. Further up Route 17 towards Southfields area, you can get on Orange Turnpike, also known as Orange County Route 19, and find the Indian Hill Loop trails. Here you've got a beautiful furnace, the Southfields Furnace, and a raging creek going through it. And you've got many different loop options that you can do there. So everything from a 1.5 mile loop up to very long hikes that you can connect to the Appalachian Trail. You can get to the top of Agony Grind without the grind to get there. Really cool, quieter place. They do have hunting at Indian Hill. They don't have hunting at Doris Duke. Now, for those of you who say, hey, listen, I just want to go to the fire tower on Sterling Ridge. You can do that, but I recommend you access that from East Shore Road in Greenwood Lake. That's going to be on your Sterling Forest map, and you're going to take East Shore Road up the east shore of Greenwood Lake, cross into New York State, and you'll be able to access P14, I believe that is there, and you can access those trails. This is what you'll see as far as views in Sterling Forest. They have their own fire tower and view of Greenwood Lake and view of Sterling Lake. A little further afield, we're going to head out into Orange County West. Orange County West will take us out toward Warwick. There's a beautiful little preserve called the Fuller Mountain Preserve. That's on the bottom left of your map. To find out about that preserve, just check out Orange County Land Trust's website. It's OCLT, orangecountylandtrust.org, and you'll find this beautiful 4-mile loop, and it overlooks the ox orchards of Warwick Valley. Another place to go check out, if you're headed out toward the High Point area on the New York side, Huckleberry Ridge and the Schwangunk Ridge Trail is at the top of your screen, and there's a pretty loop that you can do. It's about 5 miles with panoramic views. You can access it from the outskirts of Port Jervis, and you can also access the Lenape Ridge White Loop Trail through that area. Huckleberry Ridge and a number of these state forests were preserved by the Trail Conference as an effort to preserve the Schwangunk Ridge. And then Goose Pond Mountain is another section of the Highlands Trail. That's in development, and they're creating loop trails in that area. That's out near Chester and Monroe area, up along Route 17. And that's a beautiful view of the Warwick Valley and ox orchards from the Fuller Preserve. All right, I'm going to jump over to one of the most popular parks, and one that's gotten kind of crowded lately, and that's in northern Orange County, Black Rock Forest. Now, Black Rock Forest and Storm King are just seeing huge amounts of traffic, but they're all over to the east side, closer to the Hudson River. So you can be smart and access Black Rock State Forest from either the Hudson Highlands Nature Museum, where they have lots and lots of parking, or you can access it from a place called Mine Hill Road. So I'm going to point my cursor to those. Here's the parking for Hudson Highlands Nature Museum, and over here as well, off of Angola Road and Route 9W in the area of Cornwall. The other area here is Mine Hill Road, which is off Angola Road. It's a small parking area, but not very well known. And that'll get you into some beautiful parts of Black Rock. Black Rock's known as the rooftop of the Hudson Highlands, and it's a pretty awesome place to check out. If you approach from this northern western side, you won't see lots of people. So these are some of the suggested loops and trails. Also, if you're a trail runner, there is a race in November called the Black Rock Races. There's a 25K loop run that's very technical, and then there's an 8-mile run that runs these beautiful woods roads along the lakes, Sutherland, Hulse, Jim's Pond, and White Oak carriage roads. So definitely check that out. And this is Sutherland Pond, by the way. I mean, it doesn't get more pretty than that, does it? And we've got West Point and Harriman off in the distance on the horizon there. All right. I want to also talk about where not to go on weekends. Storm King, as I mentioned, Scunnamunk Mountain has parking lot issues at the moment. The Rockland parks are pretty overcrowded at the moment. And Harriman on weekdays is a good option, but I'd kind of stay away from there on weekends as well. Now let's move west of the Hudson. I'm going to talk about the Catskills. I'm going to talk about the northern Schwangunks a little bit. In Ulster, the rule of thumb for the Catskills right now is that they're asking us to stay away from the high peaks, but there are lots and lots of peaks under 3,500 feet that are worth checking out. I definitely recommend you Google and check out Ashokan High Peak. That top left photo is a view of the Ashokan Reservoir from on top of Ashokan High Peak. And it's under 3,500 feet, but sure is gorgeous. Another area close to the Hudson River is Shawpanique Ridge, also Black Creek Preserve, and then there are a ton of rail trails in the area as well. Out in Sullivan County, so if you're headed out Route 17 west, you can hit the western Catskills, and Willowammock State Forest is and will always be a wild place, I'm sure of it. You've got 40 miles of trails in there, and just abundant nature. As far as the gunks go, Sullivan County has, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but Sullivan County also has the Bashakill and Never Sink Rivers. The Bashakill is just gorgeous as a place to walk or run or ride a bike. Greene County up north, that's more about the high peaks. So I don't strongly recommend hitting Greene County right now, other than the Wyndham Path, which is a pretty trail in the town of Wyndham. So let's talk a little bit about the gunks in this area. The popular places to go in the gunks are traditionally Mohonk Preserve, Minnewaska, and Southern Minnewaska, also known as Sam's Point. Kim and I went out to Sam's Point one morning, and we got there at I think it was 9:15 or so, and they open at 9 o'clock, and they closed at 9:05 because they just didn't have enough parking there. So there are some alternatives, and you can head just south of Cragsmore Road, which is the road to Sam's Point, and you can hit some beautiful parks called Schwangunk Ridge State Forest, Rusa Gap State Forest here in the middle, and then also Wurtsboro State Forest. Wurtsboro you can actually hit from Route 17. Now these are all parks that were preserved by the Trail Conference and its partners to preserve the ridge. Schwangunk Ridge has lots of parking. There's a loop hike option you can do there, and it's close to Sam's Point. So if you get locked out of Sam's Point, you can head there. Rusa Gap has a fire tower, has amazing views, and Wurtsboro also has nice views and is very easy to access from 17. So now we're going to move east of the Hudson River, and we're going to talk a little bit about Westchester County, Putnam, and Dutchess. Just going to jump in here. One of my favorite parks in, by the way, Westchester County, I definitely recommend you check out the Westchester Trails map. And also there's a great book by Jane and Walt Daniels, who've both served on our board, called Walkable Westchester. And they cover every park in Westchester, top to bottom. So check that out. In Putnam County, there are some quiet places. Wonder Lake State Park, which was once where Elizabeth Montgomery of Bewitched used to live, and Manitou Point, which is right along the Hudson River in Phillipstown near the Bear Mountain Bridge. It should be crowded, but it's not. People don't know about it, and it has lots of parking. And then Dutchess County, which we'll talk about as well. So in Westchester County, I recommend you check out the Yorktown Trails. Sylvan Glen is one in particular that I really love. It was a quarry back in the 1930s, and many of the libraries and big buildings in Manhattan were made from the quarry that came from Sylvan Glen. So it was a giant old quarry back at that time, but it's fully reforested now, and it's just a really beautiful place with amazing rock formations and views, lots of historic remnants from the quarrying days, and good parking. And it connects to Granite Knolls and a series of other county parks nearby. So do check that out. Wonder Lake, as I mentioned, is a nice alternative if you're headed to Fondstock, which is getting overfilled these days. And Wonder Lake has a nice little trail network and a pretty lake as well. And then finally, in Dutchess County, you've got the Stony Kill Farm in Wappingers Falls. That's got a gorgeous nature center. You can check out the farmhouse. There's a historic manor there. There are gardens and quite a good trail system over in Stony Kill. And I just want to mention too, for those of you who are up in the Northeast or want to check out near the Massachusetts border, the South Taconic Trails map is really cool, and it's off the radar. People don't go there that much, and you've got a beautiful location called Bashbish Falls, which is 2 waterfalls that kind of cascade together, and then a number of different trails like South Taconics Trail that has great views and connects up with the Appalachian Trail in Connecticut and Massachusetts. So, all right. Some of you are saying, hey, I'm still going to Harriman anyway. Where can I go where it's going to be kind of quiet? And my advice is hike to the interior, go early, go on weekdays, or go off season. because the park has, record crowds right now, but it's a big park. It's 52,000 acres worth of real estate, and it's got 250 miles of trails. So you can find solitude there. You just got to get there early and find your parking place. My book, Circuit Hikes in Harriman, details 37 different loop hikes that you can do in Harriman and Bear Mountain State Parks. It's a real how-to guide, and all the proceeds from this book go directly to the trail conference. So you'll be helping to support the trails at the same time. Another cool thing about Harriman is it has no hunting in the wintertime or any other time of the year. So the third edition just arrived yesterday. So it's all updated and has some new trail routes on it. The book has elevation profiles, long and short loop options, and every chapter has a map on it. So this is kind of what it looks like. When you turn to a chapter, what you get is time, distance, and difficulty, what you're going to see as far as attractions, how to get to the trailhead, a detailed description, a map showing the direction that you're going to be going in and what trails you're going to use. And then at the bottom right there, you'll see an elevation profile. So you can actually see what your hike is going to look like from an up and downhill standpoint. So it's really a how-to guide. If you are ordering it, you can order it through the Trail Conference website, nynjtc.org. There are 2 Harriman books. One is more of a historic guide called Harriman Trails, and this one is called Circuit Hikes in Harriman. What's happening in Harriman is definitely a reflection of what's happening on many of our trails. As we're going into our 100th year, we're seeing all over the place what's happening in Harriman. You're seeing a lot of new people coming to the trails, which we're happy about. We're not happy that they're underprepared and littering, but we're trying to provide advice, support, protect our volunteers, protect the public, and get a lot of work done in a short season. With that said, I got involved with the Trail Conference personally when I was in my 20s. I think they told me I was their youngest life member at the time. And I really love this organization because, as you can see from today's conversation, this organization is about so much more than just trails. It's about land. It's about public access to nature. It's about teaching our children to value and protect the environment. And, the trails in my lifetime have given back so much to me. They're free for me to access, but they're not free to take care of. And so that's why I choose to support the Trail Conference. I'm now on the staff, but I've been a supporter for a great many years. And, I invite you to have a deeper conversation with us about the trails. Just email me or our executive director, Josh. We'd love to tell you more about the organization and why it's important to us. You can also order the Harriman book online, and you can also donate to the Trail Conference if you choose to. But I wanted to thank you all for coming and for listening to my very long talk about all the trails. And if there are any other questions about the New York trails, I'll take those now.
Thank you very much.
Thank
We
you.
did have one question.